met Ai Weiwei at the end of 2008 for a very personal reason. I did a video from my friend's exhibition. She was working with him on the New York photographs and for a gallery in Beijing. So I met him kind of personally and was like, wow, this is someone that I really want to see what's going to happen with him, and also I want to figure out more what he's about. And so I really feel like the film is a product of that kind of open investigation and what happened to him over the last few years. And there really didn't seem to be a reason why him being detained meant that suddenly you don't have to tell the story of the last few years. If anything, it's like, you know, it's great that there wasn't an overlay of any other kind of sort of lens or point of, you know, kind of meaning kind of put over it, because this is just what happened, and now it's become the story of what led up to his detention. What really changed a lot was the beginning and end of the film, and there's been so many versions of the beginning and end. I would also say that in the one thing I knew about while I was making this film was that Weiwei's story was going to go on past whenever this film was finished, and I sort of had picked a time to try to wrap it up and go into post-production, partly because I felt like I had so much information. So much had happened to him just in the few years from '08 to 2010 or the beginning of 2011 that I was like, you know, there's a really good movie in here, and maybe that's just part one, or it's the first movie, or it's an introduction to Weiwei, but there's going to be a lot more coming from him. And then it kind of ended up being that this arbitrary moment, just for my personal work, why I finished the film, all of a sudden it sort of dovetailed with an actual sort of demarcation point of a period in Weiwei's life because of this detention. So it kind of ended up, being an important period in his life that I just kind of was making the film then, and that's why it happened. Weiwei's status right now, I sort of call it Beijing arrest. He's not confined to his home, but every time he leaves his house, which is daily because he goes to spend time with his son, he has to call his police minders and tell them where he's going. For me, my experience working on the film, in Beijing, I did not really experience any kinds of difficulties or pressure. Yes, there were the cameras on his studio doors, and I noted them, and when they first went up, I wondered if I should hide from them or not, but eventually you just wave at them. I mean, it wasn't really clear what the consequence was of going to visit him once, because there were so many journalists, he had so many assistants who, also people who could have looked like me, who were coming all the time. So the times when there were more high-pressure situations were on the filming trips to Chengdu, when we knew that we were going to the police station, to the seats of authority, to the courts with complaints. And we always tried to make sure, I was always overcautious, I think, in terms of, do you want me to be there? Should I stay in the car? And so that's why on the third trip to Chengdu that you see in the film, when there's sort of a little bit of a scuffle that breaks out and it gets a little bit physical, we had me as another camera angle from the car, because that was one of those times where we decided, maybe you stay in the car on this visit. So there were times, and the police did, ask to see footage or try to take footage away in those few instances. But it's also amazing how long in that first trip that I was there that I was able to film him being, making a complaint in the police station. And I don't know if you could do that here in the US. So I think there's a lot of really interesting things about those trips. But those were really the only sort of really tense moments. The question was, what have I learned from Ai Weiwei as an artist and how it might impact me on future projects? Even from the very beginning, I think that Weiwei's attitude is just to kind of to do things by, to learn things by doing them. That if you see yourself as an artist, which he sort of, for himself, pins to that time in New York when he sort of decided, okay, I am an artist, and I am, for example, I have the right to document my own life and to, figure out what I want to do, and I don't necessarily need to learn it from school or things like that. And I think that that attitude is really inspiring and empowering. I think that the importance of transparency in society, I think that's something that's not just in Chinese society, but I think in the world over, a lot of problems you can kind of trace back to a lack of transparency. And I think also that the power and potential of social media and the role of art and culture in kind of engaging with politics and kind of shaping people's maybe not even shaping people's opinions, but like reframing the question or like highlighting a new question for people. When he was detained, for example, and that was the first time that I was kind of putting myself out because the movie was not finished and it wasn't something where I was a figure to speak out in any way, where I just felt like, what would WEIWEI do? I got like the best PR training you could ever get for 3 years by like watching him answer the phone and give a quote after something happened like every day. And I just felt like, yeah, as much as I'm a little nervous for, to speak out, this is what I feel. And there's, that's kind of what you have to do. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Jen.